What's up, fellow Aqua Teen freaks? Ronnie here from the Dancing is Forbidden podcast. I thought we'd get a little wild today and rank through Season 3 of the show. You heard me right, I know. If you're of the faint of heart, I don't know if you could handle this, but otherwise, stick around, why don't you? So, as you can see here, we obviously have a bit more than Season 3 up on the screen. That is because I've already ranked through Seasons 1 and 2 of the show, and the goal here being to eventually rank through every episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And having said that, of course, this is just my personal ranking, not saying these are the best episodes. These are just the ones that made me giggle and have a good time watching through them. Having said that, Aqua Teen's my favorite show, so even my least favorite episode here, it's relative. You know, I'll take Love Mummy over 99.5% of the rest of television, so doesn't mean that they're bad if I don't like them, just means that in relation to other Aqua Teen episodes, that's where they sit. I don't have anything prepared, I don't know how I want to rank these things. Full disclosure, I did do this video earlier. It got messed up, but I already forgot what I even did, so who cares? Let's just get into it there. We have our name of wheels. It's ready to go, fully loaded here with all 13 episodes of the Season 3, and, you know, a bit lighter of a season. Season 1 was 18 episodes, Season 2 was 24. This one, in comparison, a little brisk. So let's click our wheel of names and see what we're gonna get here. So first up, we have Dusty Gazangas. Now, this one, I'm not sure if I saw it growing up, like on TV around the time that it premiered, but regardless, watching through it for the podcast, it's a fun episode. I have to say, though, it was one of my least favorite from the season. Again, that's relative. It's still a good episode, but I felt like this one maybe relied just too much on, like, kind of the same joke. I mean, it's fun watching Shake and Carl fight each other over a girl. And if, you know, that sounds familiar to you, that's because that's what they did in Mail Order Bride, but they do it in such a different way here that I'm not knocking it. I don't, you know, deduct points for that. I don't mind when they revisit things because, you know, we love these characters and they always find a new way to go about doing stuff. And we'll see that, you know, again throughout this season. But the way that they did it here, I think I preferred Mail Order Bride, that take on it. So where this one goes, I think this is a B tier episode. What I do on the podcast is I assign like a 1 through 5 rating, so I have those written down, so those are kind of my guideline here. This one I gave a 3.5 out of 5, so I think that's kind of like B, C tier. I think this one might be high C tier. I think that's good. Also, while I'm making this list, I'm trying to kind of pad things out, because obviously if that wasn't the case, everything would be S and A tier. So I want to like fully, you know, use our space here. So I think high C tier is good. I mean, it's a fun episode, and it's not like I even dislike kind of this sexualized humor in Aqua Teen, especially because, you know, they have Scott Thompson, the legendary Scott Thompson, voicing Dusty Gazangas here. So it's just a fun time. But I think high C tier is a good fit for me. It's not one I'm pining to go back to, but when watching it, it's a good time. So let's click her again here and see what we can get. All right, Unremarkable Voyage. I apologize, we're starting this video on a bit of a negative note, but Unremarkable Voyage was easily my least favorite from this season. Again, another one I don't think that I saw at the time, and I want to be clear, this isn't a correlation. It's not like, oh, I didn't see it back in 2004, so therefore it's not a good episode. That's not the case. This one I just found a little bit underwhelming. Yeah, I mean, again, it's not a bad episode of television, but in terms of an Aqua Teen episode, I feel like this one kind of fell flat. It was maybe a little predictable, you know, being someone newer to the episode. And later in the season, they do revisit the concept of things happening inside of Shake in Hypno Jordan, and spoiler, I liked that take on this concept a bit more. Of course, there's no irredeemable qualities on this episode. For example, just listen to the part where Meatwad gets shrunk down. He has a really high voice. It's the cutest thing you'll ever hear. But having said that, I think that for me, this is easily a D tier episode. And honestly, like, at this moment in time, I'd rather go back and watch Love Mummy over Unremarkable Voyage. So I think this is as it stands, my least favorite episode of Aqua Teen. But again, not a horrible episode, but just didn't really do a whole lot for me. And I want to point out the trend of every second episode of each season typically is not one of my favorites, as you can see. So So we have T-Shirt of the Living Dead, and this one I have a vague recollection of seeing when it aired. But I really, really enjoyed this one. There's a lot of fun components to it. Speaking of revisiting concepts on Aqua Teen, this being one of those Meatwad Gets Powers episodes, which are always a treat. I love, because Meatwad, he always gets bullied throughout the show, but occasionally he gets some sort of power and he gets revenge on Shake. And this is one of those, and it's a fun one, but as you can see in the thumbnail, we have poor Santa Claus here kind of caught in the crossfire of everything. And, just fun seeing Meatwad bring all these mythological creatures into existence. Especially the beginning, the whole ancient Egypt museum bit is really funny, especially with Dave Willis doing this kind of shitty, tour narration. It's a very good time. So I really, really enjoyed this one. I think this one gets like a A-tier treatment. I don't think that's controversial. Here, let me shrink this down so we're not... All right, whatever. That'll be fine. Where did he... Okay, so we've got T-Shirt of Living Dead, A-tier easily. Which do I prefer to watch? I think it goes here. I think I prefer Super Birthday Snake to T-Shirt of the Living Dead. Maybe because this is an iconic episode, especially to me. Like, I grew up on season 2 of Aqua Teen, so I've seen this one a billion times. You know what? Maybe I bump it up because this is a darker one, which does breed a lot of humor. But maybe this one goes right here. I think that's a good spot for T-Shirt of the Living Dead. Top to bottom, solid episode, no complaints, lots of great moments. And I find that's really the case with all of this season, if I'm being honest. So next up, what is it? Gee Whiz or Edork? Okay, Gee Whiz, just barely. So Gee Whiz, another one I know that I've seen back at the time. And one of my favorite aspects of this episode, and that I learned from doing the podcast, is that in the episode, they think that they see Jesus Christ on a billboard, and it turns out that wasn't made up. There actually was an Atlanta billboard in the 90s where people thought they were seeing Jesus in, and the concept of it is more ridiculous than even the Aqua Teen episode, because the Aqua Teen episode, it was in the butt of a gun. It was in wood grain. In real life, it was in a Pizza Hut ad for spaghetti where people were seeing this Jesus figure. So Matt and Dave, they went and made an episode about that. But the cool thing about Gee Whiz, and I think the iconic thing about the episode, is that they faced so much pushback from standards and practices because of the religious element. They were kind of mocking religion in this episode, which was kind of a first for Aqua Teen. Surely they maybe touched on it once or twice before then in very small increments, but this was a full episode about that. And even though they could do episodes with, violence and bestiality and things like that, they weren't allowed to do the episode about religion as they saw fit. So, as you probably know, the episode kind of becomes also about censorship in general and just the ridiculousness of it. And that elevates it. You would think in any other case, being censored would diminish a project, but it really made the episode so much better than it would have been otherwise. So you have it's kind of doing two things. There's the religious bashing, which is silly, and the things they're doing with that. Meatwad getting pregnant too. I mean, there's a great twist at the end with that one. But also, it's just kind of beautiful the way they were able to, triumph over the censorship and make something better because of it. So because of that, I mean, as you could tell, I've talked way too long about this episode. S tier for me easily, just by merit of the episode, I think is great. But also, what's important here is the humor, and it's just nonstop hilarious the entire time. I mean, and they got Ted Nugent in the episode, which even though he sucks, it's like, wow, I can't believe they actually got Ted Nugent in this episode of Aqua Teen. So where does it sit for me in season 2? Probably maybe here, maybe a little bit higher. The thing about me is I'm a Meatwad freak. I got a little Meatwad back there. You might not be able to see him, but it's all right. He's taking a nap right now. And I love me some Meatwad episodes, and this is just a funny Meatwad. It's like, I done got a bun in the oven, or however it's set up. It's so funny. So I'm happy with it there. Let's roll this again. And I should say the reason why I do these, if you're unfamiliar, is at the end of every season, I do a season kind of recap retrospective. What do we got here? Ooh, it's close. Ooh, remooned at the very last second. I'll keep this up so I don't forget while I finish what I'm telling you. So in those podcast episodes, when I do the recap, I do my top 3 favorite episodes. So I'm doing this so I know what my top 3 favorites are, because I really don't know. I don't go into it with that in mind. Like I said, I already did this video once. I don't remember at all. I didn't even look at what my top 3 were, so I genuinely have to do this again to know what my top ones are. So we've got Remooned here, and we've got also a Moonanite episode. Famously, the Moonanites a bit absent from season 2. 24 episodes in season 2. They show up 3 times in that episode, I think. But it's the 2 of them are very small cameos, and the third one is the last one with all the villains. So it's not a dedicated Moonanite episode, and that's because of Space Kataz, because they were making Space Kataz at that time with the Moonanites, fully about them and the Plutonians. Makes sense they wouldn't do any season 2 episodes, but back to, once we get to season 3, they do 2 Moonanite episodes, because, it's Matt and Dave just having fun as these characters, so why not? So, where does Remooned sit? I really like this one. I remember seeing it growing up, and the thing that differentiates this episode from the other Moonanite episodes, because I'm more of a Plutonian guy, is that in normal Moonanite episodes, the Moonanites kind of take over the episode, and it's all about them, really. And that's fun, but, it's like, well, I like the Aqua Teens, too, and in Remooned, they hang out with the Aqua Teens. Their whole goal here is to get the Aqua Teens to cash a check for them. But they're not really just in your face, like, oh, we're here to fuck up your day. They're actually working with the Aqua Teens to cash this check. And it's just hilarious watching them try and fail to do this. It's just a great episode. And I gave this one a 4 on the podcast out of 5. I'm actually kind of surprised by that, because I feel like when I talk about it, this is such a good one. But I trust I gave it a 4 for a reason, after going over every second of it. And because of that, I think I'm going to put this one in A tier. It really does deserve the A tier treatment. Where in A tier does it go? I'm thinking, maybe even above Mayhem of the Moonanites. I'm thinking that it goes here, honestly. I think this is good. I actually really like this placement of it. Yeah, just a solid time, a different kind of Moonanite episode, which I appreciate. That's why the first 2, I mean, they're still A tier, they're still great episodes, but they're not S tier for me. But this one, a great episode. So next up, Hypno Jordan, and this one, I have really no recollection of seeing it before maybe 2020, so it's a very new episode to me, and even then, I really didn't fully sit down and pay attention to it until doing it for the podcast. And I remember my first time seeing it, not really liking this one. I thought it was too different. The plot of this one is that, Shake, there's this whole fake play going on inside of his head. So I thought it was a little too strange, a little too different. But while covering it for the podcast, I just fell in love with this one. First up, we have this stacked crew of voice actors that we've never even seen on the show before. We get Bob Odenkirk has a small part, Fred Armisen, who then goes on to be in other Aqua Teen content, and Squidbillies, and a bunch of other Adult Swim stuff. As far as I know, this is Fred Armisen's first Adult Swim appearance. And speaking of first, this is Tim and Eric's first television appearance ever. Even before, this came out before Tom Goes to the Mayor. So as far as I know, this is Tim and Eric's first television appearance, which is cool. I'm a huge fan of theirs. And you have, the writers from The Onion here. You have Ronnie Land, a famous Atlanta artist who is incredible. So this is a very cool episode. But really what made me love it was I love bad media. The Room is my favorite film. I love all sorts of bad movies that are just, you just sit there and laugh at them because they're just put together poorly. And the point of this episode is that, there's this bad play. So once I really paid attention to those elements, it was brilliant. Watching the little bean actors fuck up and stuff, I thought was great. So I love this one. It was easily a 5 out of 5 episode to me, a very shocking change in opinion for me on an episode of anything, really, because I didn't expect to like this one going into it, but I was just proven wrong. It's such a great one. Where does it sit in the S tier? Maybe it's not high S tier. It's a very, very good episode, but it's not high S tier. Maybe it goes behind Gee Whiz. I think it actually goes, I think here, actually. but still, I mean, it's S tier. I think it's a great episode. I understand why some people don't like it, because it is so different. But really, I mean, once I honed in on the bad play elements, it was just so funny. So let's roll again here. And I really do want to reiterate, I did this list before, and I genuinely don't remember anything I said, because I kind of wish I did to give me some talking points. But next up, we have South Bronx Paradise Diet. A very fun one. I had a vague recollection of this one going into it, and it ended up being just an all-around solid, fun episode. Again, I'm a Meatwad man. Love me some Meatwad. This is a Meatwad episode, and it's so delightful seeing... First of all, you have these two camps of Meatwad trying to lose weight the right way, even though Frylock's kind of forcing him. And then Carl, who's doing nothing but eating these candy bars. And then it's fun to see Shake try and fuck with Meatwad, but not like physically, like violently, like usual. He's just trying to give him bad food. It's just so silly. And there's this like kind of gory, shocking reveal at the end that is great. But more to this episode that's fun to watch is that, you know, as Aqua Teen went on here in the third season specifically, the animators were just getting more efficient at making the show, which allowed them to do more animation elements than in season 1, for example. And because of that, we see Meatwad, like, he's not even in ball form the entire episode. He's always a little humanoid with his little spandex on. And we have Carl with a new model, really, and he's climbing on the ceiling in this creepy way. It's just like, there's so much going on here visually, but also the jokes are just great. So I don't think this is an S tier one for me. I think it's easily an A tier episode. And, you know, of course, this list, it's still top heavy. There's still a lot of S and A tiers, but I'm doing my best to pad it out. But I can't argue with the facts. I love this episode so much. And I think it goes maybe here, I think, is a good spot. And again, a lot of these could be interchangeable. I could move stuff around. I'm not going to bother to, but I'm happy with that placement there. It's just a solid episode. No complaints about it. Very, very... Again, just Meatwad with that little form is so funny to me. So next up is Edork, and this is one I was familiar with. I knew what this one was. I had seen this one multiple times, I think, back in the mid-2000s, and so I was excited to get to this one in this season, because, I mean, in case you're unfamiliar, I grew up specifically on season 2. I had both those DVD box sets, but I also had seen season 1 a lot on TV. So season 3 was my first time diving into a season I wasn't super familiar with, but this was one of those episodes that I was. So I was excited to get to it, and it holds up. I really enjoyed this one. I love whenever Aqua Teen deals with technology. It's always fun to see that, and especially being a show from the early to mid 2000s, we get a lot of that tech almost inadvertently in the show. But in this one, of course, I don't suspect Matt and Dave thought that the future would really look like this, but it's fun to see them kind of play with future technology in a way, but it's so absurd. And inversely, actually, to South Bronx Paradise Diet, we actually don't get a lot of animation in this episode, as, you know, Shake's bogged down with this heavy tech. He's got a fucking piano on his back. He doesn't move that much, but surprisingly, they keep the episode well-paced. They keep it enjoyable to watch, which I think is just, I mean, chef's kiss to the animators here. That can't be hard to do, but they did it, and to me, S tier episode on Edork. It's just such a crazy episode. Where does this one go? Definitely mid to high S tier for me. I think it's... And speaking of technology, Romulux with the PDA, that's a good example right there. I mean, talk about outdated tech. And there's a few other examples here as well. But I think here it might be better than Space Conflict from Beyond Pluto to me, but I just love the Plutonians so much. So I think this is, a safe spot. Middle S tier. Nothing wrong with that. Edork, you did well. Very, very fun episode. And there's a surprising history behind that one. I'm not trying to clickbait you here, but I talk about it in the podcast. I need to move on, though, to the next one. But there's a fun Space Ghost history behind that episode. So, Space Gate World here, the final episode of Season 3, also known as Carl, in case you're unfamiliar with that title. That's what they wanted to call it. It's on the back of the DVD like that, and we see there's footage of them doing all the voice dialogue for this episode, and in that, Dave at some point just says Space Gate World, and they're like, yeah, that's what we're gonna call this one. So Space Gate World, one that I wasn't really familiar with, similar to Hypno Jordan. I hadn't really seen this one, and this one also similar to Hypno Jordan. it's also not focusing on the Aqua Teens. But this time, Hypno Germ is divisive because it focuses on this completely non-Aqua Teen element. This episode focusing on Carl, and this is something that I'm sure at the time fans were just pining and asking for, and we got it. And this kind of informed season 5. The first, I think, 3 episodes of season 5 are all really just about Carl. So this kind of like them playing around with that for the first time. So where does it go here? Surprisingly, maybe to you, I didn't like this one as much as Hypno Germ. I think overall, it's probably a better episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and I think there's way more appeal to Space Gate World because of that. But to me, the ending was maybe a little bit rushed. And of course, I mean, it's Aqua Teen. A lot of episodes just end. But to me, it kind of loses sight of things once Rudy, the security robot, shows up. Maybe just as a means of getting the characters all together to end the episode. But I mean, still, it's very funny. I'm not really complaining about that. It's an A-tier episode for sure. Very, very easily an A-tier episode. It's just so fun seeing how fucking depraved Carl is. I mean, you see here, he's pissing in a can. I don't know how Apple let me use this artwork, but they did. So I'm very grateful for that because I think that's hilarious. And you get Matt Malero too, just straight up playing himself. He's not even like a character. It's just himself as a delivery man. Not to go on too long about this one. Where does it go? I kind of dropped it here. I kind of think I like it here. I think this is good. Middle A tier. I think that's a nice... Because it's such a great episode, but, the Aqua Teens are only in it so much, which there's nothing wrong with that. I actually don't mind that, as you know by Hypno Germ. But I just feel like I'd probably rather watch Remooned over Space Gate World. But they're two different kinds of episodes. I mean, Space Gate World up to this point is one of the most depraved episodes of the show. It's all about Carl. I mean, what would you hope for? I'm not complaining about that whatsoever. It's about Carl. It needs to be kind of sad and kind of gross, and that's what it is. So a good time if you're looking for that kind of episode. Space Gate World's got you covered. So Robo Sitter. This one, very vivid memory of me as a little kid. Laying on the couch late at night watching this episode. And I remember at the time not being super crazy about it. I remember being like, the earlier ones are better than this. Going into it for the podcast, though, which again, I expected not really to be crazy about it, I really liked this one. I felt like the pacing was incredible. Maybe now as an adult, having worked shitty menial jobs, maybe I can appreciate watching Shake and Frylock, do that. As a kid, I was probably like, man, I'm gonna be a rock star, so I don't care about this kind of episode. But as an adult, I'm like, this is great. But more so, I want to give credit to Sarah Silverman. I think she does a great job here, and full disclosure, it's not like I'm a Sarah Silverman freak, like I'm super into her stuff. I like her in everything I see her in, but I don't ever, seek anything out with her in it. But I was actually really sad watching this one that she didn't show up, I don't think, ever again in Aqua Teen, because not only as like a celebrity guest, I think she just really fits the show, the tone of the show, the way that she can go from 0 to 100 with her just screaming, like people leave and then she's screaming at Meatwad. It's so great, and I feel like she just fit in so perfectly. And also the honor of I believe being the first female villain. I mean, I don't think it's fair to qualify Svetlana here as a villain. She didn't do anything wrong, but Robo Sitter, very, very violent. To Meatwad. So a fun episode. I really, again, like this one more than I thought it was. I'm looking at my ranking on it here. Yeah, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 here. I really enjoyed this. And again, it's always a delight when you think that you're gonna not like something, but you end up liking it. So where does it go? I'm kind of stuck between S and A tier. I think S tier should be for mostly 5 out of 5s that I gave. So I think this one goes A tier, high A tier for sure, because there's really no faults for me with this episode. It's just such a fun time, and we get to go to the Powerpuff Mall, and that's always nice. They set it up in Rabat, the Powerpuff Mall. It's always nice to go back and spend some time there. So where does it sit? I think here, actually. I think this is good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that's good. I mean, it's sitting between two very different episodes, with the last one being just this fantastic, grouping up of all these villains, not even about the Aqua Teens. And then super trivia here, being a Frylock episode that we don't normally get. But all the Aqua Teens and Carl are in it. They all have great moments. You get Seth MacFarlane, Wayne the Main Brain McLean. So 3 incredibly different episodes here, but I think I'm happy with that. So let's spin again as I talk too long about Robo Sitter and give you too many details. Again, if you want more of these kinds of details, check out the podcast, link in the description. Next up, Moon Master, and this one is one I was excited for to get into. I think I saw it back in the day, but only maybe once, maybe twice. But I had just very vivid recollections of it because I think of all these new visual elements that Bob Pettit, the show's prop and background artist, gives us here. And of course, it's not like he just decided to give them to us. The episode called for it. But it's such a treat when you have all these new kind of elements, and they're all so funny, and there's just so much work put into this one. But beyond that, beyond the production value of it, I'm somebody who loves learning about like MLMs, pyramid schemes, as tragic as they are for the people involved who aren't at the top, who are, the people at the top are the most incredible pieces of shit you could imagine. And that's the case here. We have the Moonanites coming in with the Aqua Teens here. And this another, again, a different kind of Moonanite episode. They're not even in this one that much, but they really drive the episode. It's because of them that we get everything that happens in it. We see them a lot towards the end, but it's a very interesting episode, but a very, very, very funny one, especially when you have Shake, Meatwad, and Carl all trying to get Shake, Meatwad and Carl all trying to get Frylock to sign up to their thing, because they only know this one guy. He's the only person they could possibly get to sign up to this. But it also lends into the fact that the show was low budget, and surely they had other characters maybe they could bring in that Matt or Dave could voice. But it's just funny to me from a production standpoint that it's really these 4 characters. That's all that they have on the show. So of course, just the one guy who's not caught up in this is getting berated to join it. So enough about that. I really, really love this one. S tier easily for me. Where in S tier? Pretty dang high S tier. This one just cracks me up. This one is so absolutely funny. And I know I'm going on too long, but the video game element on this one is great. I'm not quite sure who designed it. I think it was Nick Inkatanawat who did it. But you have these hilarious level designs where, Meatwad, he just has to walk up the screen like one little thing. And it's like, yo, you won. Congratulations. Just so funny to me. So where does it sit here? I think we go right here. I mean, to be honest with you, everything above it is like pure nostalgia territory for me, but also being, I think, incredible episodes that only this show can do. I mean, that's true of all the episodes, but I think this is like a really prestigious spot on my list. So Moonmaster sitting pretty there. I'm happy with where that goes. So we're down to 2. The final 2, who are we gonna get? We're gonna get Video Ouija. And I have a really nostalgic soft spot for this one. Video Ouija, I don't have the release dates in front of me, but Video Ouija and I think maybe Unremarkable Voyage and maybe one more, they actually aired sometime before season 3 became a normal weekly releasing season. So this one came out a few months before, but I do remember seeing it as a kid, and I remember because of how great this episode was, I always wanted the Volume 4 disc, which I know, confusing naming convention, but this is the season 3 disc, and I always wanted this as a kid, never quite got it until starting this podcast, so gotta kiss it. I gotta kiss every DVD box set on here that I do, and I always wanted this one because of that, because of this episode. And again, we get that video game element with the Video Ouija, and it's just so funny. It's so crazy from top to bottom. Not that much Shake in this episode, but similar to Moonmaster, with the Moonanites, he does drive the episode. It's because of him that the episode happens, even though he's not even in most of it. But BillyWitchDoctor.com, come on. I mean, such a great character. S tier for me, folks. I don't know what to tell you. I love this episode so much. I believe MC Chris's last credit on the show as a production assistant before he left to pursue his rap career, his lap career. He's not a swimmer. He's a rapper here. And so I think this is the last MC Chris episode. I haven't really talked to him about this, but he is credited here. So where does it sit? Pretty dang high, if you couldn't guess. Very funny episode. Just BillyWitchDoctor.com. I know I'm going on too long, but BillyWitchDoctor.com. I love the way they introduce this character, that he fucks with the Aqua Teens, but in this really, really funny way, and you don't expect this from him. You know, when he shows up, you assume the joke is just gonna be, oh, they're kind of mocking this, like, you know, African, you know, witch doctor thing. But the jokes really lie in that he's always, like, fucking around with Carl and Frylock and Meatwad. Like, he's just so unprofessional, and it's great. So, I think Video Ouija probably goes here. I think that's good. It's such a good episode, man, and I was so excited to cover this one on the podcast. So, great one. I guess no point in clicking. We have Little Brittle as our final episode. So, this, I think, a good one to wrap up on. This is an interesting one because, as you can see, MCP Pants was my favorite episode of season 1, my third favorite episode so far. MCP Pants as a character is my favorite villain of the show, like, of all time. And they bring him back here for a third time. And I know this is somewhat of a divisive episode because it's a very different episode. And I don't think it's this amazing episode. I feel like the pacing is very slow, and they do pull it off. It's not, I mean, there are some, you know, slow-paced episodes that I don't think pull it off. So I'm not knocking it. Very different episode, but because of that, I actually enjoyed it. Now, having said that, in the commentary, Dave Willis kind of breaks my heart because he says something along the lines of, yeah, you know, we kind of went back to the MCP Pants well one too many times. This one maybe not super exciting. And then and that's not really what breaks my heart. What breaks my heart is when he says basically that, like, oh, we could have done so much more with it. For example, they could have tried to bring MCP Pants to live with them because they felt bad for him, and then have to install wheelchair ramps, and then Shake gets pissed off about it. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh, that would have been so good because we spend so much time here in the hospital. And of course, I think it is a solid episode, but it would have been so funny to see them have to do that, you know, just to see them try and take care of this elderly Little Brittle, aka MCP Pants. But having said that, the episode for what it is, I think is great. And for me personally, MCP Pants, 1,000 out of 5 episode, a great episode. Super Sirloin, one that I grew up with, that I thought I would love diving into it, I found to actually not be as impressive to me because of the fact that it really is kind of just copying the first one, but in a way that's not as interesting. It's a great episode, like, there's nothing wrong with it, but to me, that was like, I'm like, oh man, I feel like it's kind of just the same thing, but like, there's no, you know, Carl Meatwad component, they're hanging out, that doesn't happen in this one. It's still a great episode. This one, I like that they did something new. I like that they took MCP Pants into a different territory. So because of that, not one I think I'm super crazy about. A very fun episode. I think this one can go in B tier, honestly, just to pad something out in B tier. Where in B tier it goes, I think actually here I just dropped it, but I think I prefer Frat Aliens over Little Brittle, but I prefer Little Brittle probably over Supermodel. So I guess that's it. I don't want to overthink it. I mean, this is just so subjective. This is my top tier list so far of Aqua Teen Hunger Force up till season 3. Again, if you would like to hear me get way more in depth on all of these episodes, then check out the podcast. I also interview the guys who work on the show, and lately I've been just blessed that they'll answer any of my questions that I have about it. So every episode I try and get something from one of the guys in it, just reading one of their emails or something. So that's it for me. Before I go, though, I want to mention, if you want to make your own list, I will put links down below, because I have all the tier maker charts where you could do your own. Feel free to send it to me on social media or email. It'd be fun to see. So that's it for me. Take it easy. Oh, you know what? No, bonus content, bonus rating. Space Kataz. I'm not going to put it in here because it's not a real Aqua Teen episode. It's its own thing. Where would I put Space Kataz? I did cover that one over on the Patreon, though, so if you want to learn more about that, you would have to sign up to the Patreon. But where would I put it, just for those curious? Because it is, like, you know, an episode on the DVD box set. I think Space Kataz would honestly be C tier. I know not popular. I know it's very well regarded. To me, though, I think it's just very samey, and I think 10 years later, they do the episode Space Caduce with the Plutonians and Moonanites, which just, to me, blows Space Kataz out of the water. So I think works well as intro skits to Season 3. I think as an episode, somewhere in C tier. I don't know where it would go between these, but yeah. There's a reason that it didn't make it to full production, and that's not me just being an asshole. I think all the guys would tell you that, and a lot of them have told me that. That like, yeah, like there's a reason we didn't continue on with that one. So that's it for me. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for talking teens. See ya in 6 months when we get back to season 4. Take it easy. Bye-bye.